Welcome, everyone, to the Nerd Journey Podcast, episode number 50. We're joining you every week to talk IT career progression and bring you the advice we wish we'd been given earlier on in our careers. I'm your host, John White, at BJourneyman on Twitter, joined by my co-host, Nick Cordy, at NetworkNerd_. Hey, Nick, how's it going?
I'm doing well, John. I am good as gold because this is number 50. We are VMware solution engineers with backgrounds in IT operations. We hope our career discussions will be vendor neutral, relevant across disciplines, and remain timeless. If you're enjoying our content, please drop us a positive review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you subscribe. And if you want to get in touch with us, tweet or DM at Nerd Journey. Ultimately, we're just two nerds on a journey.
A journey to virtual enlightenment.
So let's take a trip.
Great, Nick. Happy 50th episode. This week, I'm hoping we're taking some well-deserved time to rest and recover after what I'm sure was a hectic and rushed VM World. I hope we met a bunch of listeners that are attending, and I'm sure that one of the two of us won the sticker giveaway challenge.
Yeah, we'll have to let the listeners decide that.
Well, on the subject of vacation, it's a timely topic. Last week's episode was the first part of our discussion with Marisa Eckberg about paid time off. She mentioned that people are way more productive when they're well rested and using vacation, and that in some places there is no guarantee that you can actually get paid out for your accrued vacation time. That was shocking.
It happens, man. I hope that if you're out there and you listen to part one, that you really will consider using that PTO wisely, because we all need that time away. But this is part two, and in this episode, we're going to focus on what is HR? How can you interact with the HR department? Are they angels of death that sit in towers that we cannot approach? How does HR affect company culture? And how can you work with HR to change company culture?
Yeah, I really liked her insight on evaluating a company's culture from the outside as well, if you're thinking about working for them or you're evaluating an offer. I never thought about her tactic before. I won't spoil it. You're just going to have to listen.
Absolutely. I think it's partially because Marissa's next job is going to be as a detective or super sleuth. But here we go with part two of our interview with Marisa Eckberg.
Yeah, so second topic, kind of HR and company culture. I know we started touching on that a little bit earlier, but from your vantage point, being able to advise lots and lots of companies probably over the course of your career on how HR is used and policies are set, can you talk about how the use of HR can influence a company culture? Or maybe I should ask in the first place, do companies, see significant use or significant influence of their culture, via the vehicle of HR?
That's a good one. It depends on how senior leadership really views HR. Are we seen as the police and keeping them out of, legal trouble, kind of protecting them from their employees and all of these lawsuits that their employees want to file against them, which is not true, by the way? Or do they see us as, kind of the champions of the culture, the champions of the team, how to tell them how to interact and manage their employees for high productivity and to make it a cool place to work. I've seen some leadership that's like, we want to make this a cool place to work. Tell us how to do that. That's the culture sweet spot, right? That's an HR professional's happy place. Yay! We get to work on really cool, fun things like unlimited PTO and, doing away with the annual performance review and doing a 4x4 or something like that. But then you have kind of these older, more conservative companies that are more about, we have rules, we need structure, we need HR to be the police, we need, that kind of thing. It really depends on how senior leadership views HR and how that kind of makes the difference on what we as HR professionals can do. Does that make
It's
sense? Yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting because as you said that, how senior leadership views HR, it occurred to me just as you said that, I've worked for companies where there's a chief human resources officer, but now I work for a company where that title is chief people officer. And it's a subtle difference, but it's a very telling difference, isn't it? Like just that title, like,
Yes. I'm seeing a transition now just within HR as far as titles are concerned. So, human capital management or people operations or, yeah, chief people strategist or, kind of things to take the kind of, because in the 80s and 90s, early 90s, we were personnel, right? And then we
right.
moved to human resources. So now we're trying to kind of move out of that into more of a, okay, yes, they're humans, but they're actually people, right? There's a human being, but yeah, it's a person with like feelings and a family and things like that. So
Yeah,
yeah.
human resources kind of commodifies the people in the title. It's like I have my compressed air resources and my butane resources and my human resources. It's like
Exactly.
it's stuff that I'm inventorying and the things that I burn through.
Right.
Whereas
Right.
people, just the title change, like kind of values the person, and it's so interesting. I'd completely forgotten about the personnel office. It's maybe something that every time you see in like an 80s movie or something like that about corporate culture, like you hear it referenced and I go, oh yeah, that's right. That's what it used to be called, but we don't have that anymore. But, it's just an evolution of the role, a constant evolution of the role.
Exactly.
So, okay. So, um, you've told us that maybe the human resources department, the effect on culture that it can have really has to do with the senior leadership of the organization and how they view the company, and maybe even how they value company culture, right? Whether or not
Right.
it is valued. So, maybe
Absolutely.
there's somebody, with a title like a whole separate department called the chief cultural officer or something. But I mean, oftentimes, I mean, I'm guessing that kind of maps to that, personnel or human resources or people management department uh,
Mhm.
where culture is owned. Um, Maybe we can talk about ways that individual contributors, when they're evaluating a company, clues that you can take and figure out about how that company values culture versus there's like speaking, talking the talk versus walking the walk. Is there? Do you have any ideas on how we can evaluate it? Like I, for example, I've worked for at least three companies that had like cultural values like on their website, and then you know fewer than that where those cultural values were talked about like in a meeting of like five people or less. um, as like important things that we need to keep in mind when making this decision, right? So, any way to evaluate like how you know values are valued, or whether it's just lip service, or how important published company culture is and actually executed on.
In the day of social media, excuse me, social media, I would check a company's social media pages. See a lot of companies that are kind of, fun places to work. The employees are going to post about their companies. They're going to take pictures in the office together, right? They're going to post about the company, search them on Facebook, search them on, Instagram and all of the social media places. Glassdoor is always a good place to go to kind of look and see what people are saying about a company. But those are going to be your telltale signs, right? I know that's kind of when I get a new client, for example, I will go search them. I'll go search them on LinkedIn. I'll go search them on Facebook. I'll follow their Facebook page. I'll see what kind of engagement and interaction that they're having, and are they taking pictures in the office? Do the employees look happy? That kind of a thing. Um, Search out somebody on LinkedIn that might work for the company. Maybe look at their LinkedIn profile. Look at a few people that maybe have worked for them in the past. Look at someone who maybe have had the same role as that you're interviewing for. See how long they were in those roles. Those kinds of things. I'm a little bit of a sleuth when it comes to those things. So I might be a little like borderline stalker, but I want to make sure that my home, my place where I go 40, 50 hours a week is going to be a good fit for me. Do I want to be there? And I can't just trust what is being said to me during an interview because that business wants to look good. They need a person to come and do the job for them. So they might not give 100% honest, 100% full picture of the job. I don't want to say they're not being honest, but they might kind of withhold some of the hard stuff in that interview. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So you're saying that when you're bringing a client on, especially as part of that evaluation, you know, maybe they're going to come to you and say, "We want to achieve this." Then you can give them a baseline by saying, well, this is how I perceive you after looking at all your social media. So if your goal is to, increase retention or more effective hiring processes, and higher yield in the people, your best prospects for hiring, then you need to actually change how your company is perceived. And the easiest way to do that is to change how it actually is and then document it in kind of traditional social media. I mean, I suppose that a different like way to do it is to fake it, right? And say, okay, everybody pose and smile, and then I'm going to put it on our Instagram page.
Yeah.
But that kind of thing is, I mean, instinctually when we see that,
Mhm.
we kind of go, oh, like that's kind of fake, isn't it?
I don't know. So culture is very organic, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Some believe it can be kind of it's a top down kind of effect. I view HR as really a facilitator of culture, right? I can't say, hey, we're all going to dress up for Halloween, or we're going to decorate the office for the holidays, or we're going to have a cube decorating contest. If people don't want to do that, then yeah, it's kind of and everybody dress up who wants to, and we'll take a picture. Yeah, it's kind of. But if somebody comes to HR and says, hey, we were thinking about like, you know, doing a costume contest and the departments were going to do a contest, it's kind of HR's role to kind of facilitate that. Go to leadership, in my opinion, go to leadership and say, hey, they want to do this. It might conflict with a little bit of work during the day. How can we make this happen? Right? Because your employees want to do that and giving them kind of that leeway. I don't know if you guys have ever visited, have you ever heard of Zappos?
Sure. Yeah,
Is
it's
that
the shoe
this
company.
Yep.
shoe
Heard of it.
online shoe
Definitely heard of them.
company? It's been several years, but they pride themselves on their company culture, right? Their customer service is unmatched, in my opinion. And the way they do that is because they have happy employees that want to come to work and want to be there. But I've actually toured their facility, their call center facility, and it is just so much fun. Like it's the employees are happy, they're smiling, they're doing goofy stuff, they're wearing silly hats, they're just being fun with each other. Um, and the way that Zappos does that is they allow their employees to come up with things that they want to do. They don't force it on them, if that makes sense. They grow it organically. And then from that, they create their values. We as a company value this because it's shown in our employees. And then they hire to those values. So their recruitment process and their interview process is very much about culture fit. we have a culture here and we protect it at all costs. So if you're not a culture fit during the interview process, we're going to ask questions to make sure that you fit in with our culture. And if you don't, you can't work here. And so that's kind of how Zappos does it. There's a really good book out there by Ann Rhodes. I think she worked for, I want to say she worked for Southwest and a couple of really, really big companies, but it's called Built on Values, and it's about creating a culture based on your values as a company. Um, and again, I'm sorry, I'm getting really off on a tangent, but it's just something that I feel very passionately about.
Yeah, that's good. I wanted to ask you, Marissa, in the IT landscape, we have this idea of cloud washing. Cloud is a big thing, and people want to talk and wrap cloud around everything. So, do you feel like companies are doing the same thing with culture? Like, oh, we have a great culture in an effort to attract new talent, whether they do or they don't?
um, yeah, I mean, I think it is definitely a buzz term or buzzword, right? Company culture. And it really goes back to employee engagement. And when I say employee engagement, that is a connection between that employee and the company and the work that they're doing, right? So that's that kind of that feeling of I want to be here. I want to do this work. I believe in the mission and vision and values of this company, and I want to contribute. I believe that we're contributing to something bigger than us, right? That's what everybody kind of wants. So that's that feeling of engagement. So you know, having the whole free beer fridge kind of thing, and the dog in the office, and you know, the open workspace and that kind of a thing is really fun and really cool. And yes, I'm happy while I'm at work, but am I truly engaged in the work? Do I feel passionate about it? So I think we sometimes get confused between culture and just kind of cool things to have, or all the newest things that other companies are doing, and we need to be Google, or we need to be, whatever, Silicon Valley company is out there.
Primary
When
primary
really,
colors and beanbag chairs. That's all you need
yeah,
for good culture.
exactly. And really, we need to be listening to the employees that are doing the work. What are the employees that are doing the work need in order to feel engaged with the company and with what we're doing?
I can see that. Like, it sounds like what you're looking for in a healthy company culture is a balance between kind of maybe some top-down values about, um, customer service and things like that, and then some like organic values that are an expression of, the employees' enjoyment of their time, within the company. I hadn't really thought about that before, but it kind of makes sense. And I'm sorry, maybe I'm just putting words in your mouth, but it sounded like those were kind of the two things that you were talking about there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So some sleuthing, that's kind of the takeaway there. That if you can take, if you as a professional, like in the HR industry, can do some research just through open sources, what is, how is the company, perceived on Facebook? What is my perception of the company on LinkedIn? What is my perception of the company through, them being tagged in Instagram? Maybe not their official Instagram feed, but like how they're tagged you know
Mm-hmm.
and I just did a Google search on some of my past employers and the word party, and you see like pictures throughout of like Halloween parties or Christmas parties, and then I did another search on my employer name and then volunteer, and you see a certain number of pictures of people doing like volunteer work, if that's for example important to you as an expression of company culture. And it's just I hadn't really thought about doing that work, or I think I've seen it in my LinkedIn feed. It's like, oh, here's a picture of us at we call it, at our company, we call it service learning, right? So almost at every big gathering, we have a volunteer project that we call service learning, and inevitably people are taking pictures and posting them on social media. So it kind of tells you what's going on, like that, the employees are kind of organically engaged in, whatever these activities are. And I hadn't really thought about it until you mentioned it. So we as individuals, when evaluating a company, whether we want to work there, have the opportunity to evaluate them via social media.
Yeah. And I would also say, um, and you, I think you briefly just said it, but what you value. So, what do you, I mean, before you go out there and start looking at companies and, applying for positions and stuff, what do you truly value in a company? What do you want your company's values to be? I would argue that your values probably need to closely match the values of the company that you're going to be working for. So if you don't know kind of what your core values are, what your why is, then you can't really find a good fit as far as company.
That's a really difficult question to answer for oneself. Like evaluating and figuring out what your core values are is really difficult, and it probably is a good idea to take a look at, just a cross section of what company values are in the industry, maybe that you're targeting on various websites, because you see some repeating themes, like customer, a relentless focus on our customers and our service to them, valuing our employees, integrity, those types of things. And, again, whether or not those specific companies actually follow through on those values, you need to, figure out like which ones of those things are important, and then, you know, um, what would be a match. That's fascinating. Thanks so much
Well,
for that.
and this actually dovetails really nicely into our conversation from episode 17, part two of reasons not to pursue a career opportunity. We talked about the value match between personal value, professional value, and values of the company. Here's what I'm curious about, Marissa. So if I'm already employed by the company and I didn't really, let's just say I didn't do my homework real well, in the
Yeah.
in the early process. I've already taken the job. I worked there for a while, and maybe I'm not as engaged as I could be. But I have an idea of something that I want to change. When when do I choose to go to my manager versus HR for some help on how to make that change at the company, or to find out if it's
Oh.
even possible?
Well, I guess it would depend on what kind of change you would want to make.
Let's just say it's something as simple as we want to have the costume party, or this is some fun new program.
Mm, I mean, if you have a good relationship with your manager and you feel like your manager kind of has a good, relationship with senior management or HR, I mean, you could definitely have the discussion with them and see, do you think this is a good idea? Should I talk to HR about this? You can always talk to HR about it as well. Um, I, I think it's about kind of the way you broach it, right? So don't, kind of walk in there on week 2 and say, hey, we need to have, some culture up in here. This is my idea. You might wait for a little while until you're not the new person on the block, so to speak, and then kind of bring it up, and not as a complaint, right? So, this place, we need some fun in here. Bring ideas. Try to think through your ideas. Try to think through solutions to the problem that you're seeing, and kind of bring it up that way. Hey, I've noticed this and this, or I've noticed that I have I see 3 people on the team that I happen to know, practice Hanukkah during the holidays, and, you know, somebody else practices something else. I was thinking maybe we could have a potluck and we could call it, I don't know, Christmas around the world or holidays around the world, and we could all, kind of do that. And that way it's more inclusive than just, the regular holiday party or something. Just kind of bring it as, I see this, and this is my proposed solution instead of just a complaint.
Right. I need to not have tunnel vision and be able to look outside myself to do other people that are individual contributors like me think this is a good idea, that kind of thing.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah.
Would it be safe to say in that, that situation where somebody has a positive, suggestion to make, that maybe it's easier to start with the, direct manager and the individual team, and then, maybe the conversation with HR is once like, oh, we perceived that there was an issue. We solved the issue on a small scale, and maybe we're coming to HR to say, hey, do you want to programatize this and kind of take it company wide?
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, it worked for our team.
Right.
Maybe other teams would like it, or department or whatever.
Hmm. Now, what about going to HR with issues? Like, again, maybe, we just touched briefly about, burnout, for example, or, maybe there's like team conflicts. When should employees, do you think, go to HR with problems? Like, when is the right time to go to HR with a problem? I think that you even touched upon it. Sometimes, HR is perceived as being a group that's there to protect company reputation as opposed to maybe look out for the individual. And I don't know, maybe that's true in some places and less true in the others. When do you, or how does an employee judge that?
That's a good question. You always want to go to HR if there's a policy violation or maybe there's a law being broken. Obviously, you would go directly to HR on something like that. But if there's some kind of personal conflict or something going on with a coworker or something, you might try. It depends on the relationship that you have with your manager or supervisor. Usually, when I've worked for a single employer before as an HR manager, if an employee came to me and said, well, this happened in the break room, so and so called me a name or whatever. My first question is usually going to be, well, did you talk to your manager about that? And if they say, no, I haven't, okay, well, we can either pull your manager in here or we can all talk together. Or do you feel comfortable going to talk to your manager about it? But it's kind of one of those things where you don't want to escalate too quickly. And I see HR as more of an escalation point, or most management will. You don't want to go kind of around them or over their head unless it's something that you don't feel comfortable talking to them about. And another thing I want to add in here about HR, when you have a problem, you don't want that to kind of be your first conversation with HR, right? We're people too. We're employees of the company. So if you see us in the hall or, in the break room or whatever, say hi, right? Like the first words that we hear from you is you sitting down in our office and saying, I have a complaint, is probably, not the first meeting that you want to have with HR. You want to build that rapport with us first. And if we're a good HR professional, we're going to be out there trying to build rapport with you too. But some of us get stuck in our office sitting at our computer all day and we forget that there are people out on the floor that we can engage with or over the phone. So just a tip from your local HR professional. Say hi every once in a while.
Yeah. Hi, Marissa. I've been meaning to talk to you about this coworker of mine. I happened to podcast with him, and I feel like he's really bullying me on the air. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, Marissa, thank you so much for joining us on our journey. I think I learned a lot about PTO, learned a lot about, an insider's view on HR and company culture. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks very much.
Oh, no problem. Thanks, guys. I had fun too.
man, Nick, again, I just love that discussion of culture and evaluating it when you're thinking about working at a place and you don't know what it's actually like from the outside. And any episode with a book recommendation is a good one in my mind. Oh, and also the suggestion to cultivate a relationship with HR before you need them. That's just great advice. We use that in other aspects of our lives. And of course, it should apply to our relationship with HR as well.
Absolutely. They're just people too. Say hi to them. You should say hi to everybody, hopefully. John, what was interesting to me there is in the technology field, we have this cloud washing concept where it seems like everyone is putting cloud in front of things and offering it as a service. And when I look on LinkedIn and whatnot nowadays about companies recruiting, they seem to be using their culture more and more, and it almost feels like a culture wash in their marketing. But I liked the way we dove into, what is that about? Why are companies using it? And Marisa had some great perspectives there.
Yeah, definitely. And, that idea of actually going in and maybe affecting that company culture and when to actually go to HR with issues too. That was a good evaluation of how it should be done. Anything else before we end the episode?
Well, if you're out there, maybe you have issues, and it's probably because you haven't signed up for the John White School of Mentoring. So if you want to get past those issues, take that career to the next level, send that tweet out to @NerdJourney today for pricing and packaging. I can take your money and we'll give you some of John's time. We're always adding curriculum.
We're collectively on Twitter @NerdJourney. So farewell, listeners. Tune in next time as the journey continues. I'm John White @VJourneyman for Nick Cordy @NetworkNerd_, signing off.
Adios.